Be'ezras Hashem, with Hashem's help, we begin today a new set of laws, the final set of laws in this very, very long book, the book of Avodah, the book of service in the temple. And the name of these laws is called Hilchos Me'ilah, the laws of Me'ilah. Me'ilah, I guess, is best translated as sacrilege or misappropriation. It's basically using something that belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, something which is inherently holy, and you're using it for your own needs.
For mundane purpose.
Yeah. That's the basic premise of Me'ilah. There's also going to be another section in this set of laws which deals with what's called Giza va'avoda. Giza va'avoda means shearing or working animals that are dedicated as sacrifices. That's a little different to Me'ilah. Me'ilah means specifically you deriving benefit, personal benefit, from something which is in the holy arena. Shearing and working, as we're going to see different examples in the Rambam, it's possible to happen even when it brings you no personal benefit. There's still a prohibition. For example, let's say you wanted to shear a sheep that belonged to Hektish, it belonged to the holy treasury, and you wanted to shear it for Hektish. You have a nice haircutting machine, so you figure I'm going to shear the sheep and I'll give it all to the temple treasury. It's essentially forbidden to shear and work with animals of Hektish. It's a separate, it's under the same umbrella as Me'ilah because it's also misappropriation of holy consecrated things, but it's not the main feature of Me'ilah. We're going to discuss both in this set of laws. As the Rambam always does, he gives us the list of mitzvahs that we discuss here. He says, Yesh b'chlala shalish mitzvahs. There are 3 mitzvahs in this set of laws. Achas mitzvah saseh, ushtayim mitzvahs le'saseh. 1 is positive, 2 are negative, v'zehu pratan, and these are their details. Aleph, number 1 is l'shalim hamoyel. If somebody is moyel, if somebody commits sacrilege, he misuses hekdesh, he needs to pay. Asher chata, the amount that he sinned, in other words, whatever worth you benefited from, or whatever amount your benefit is worth, you have to pay that back, b'toisvis choimish b'karban, plus adding a 5th, and bringing a special sacrifice. V'zehu din hamoyel, that's the law of the person who commits Me'ilah. Beis, also again under the rubric, but a separate prohibition, shalei la'avoid b'kodashim, not to perform work with consecrated animals, and Gimel shalei ligzes kodashim, not to shear consecrated animals. And again, these last 2 apply even if they don't bring you any personal benefit. They're simply inherently forbidden acts to commit with a consecrated animal. Ubir mitzvahs elu b'prakim elu. The explanation of these mitzvahs is coming in the following 8 chapters, just over a week. It's actually going to cross over Rosh Hashanah. So this set of laws crosses over 2 calendar years. And basically what's going to happen in this first chapter is the Rambam is going to lay the groundwork, talk about these 2 general themes, Me'ilah and Giza va'avoda. And then as the chapters progress, we're going to get details in each one. Perek Rishon, chapter 1, halacha aleph, says the Rambam, Osur lehediyot lehonos mikodshei Hashem. It's forbidden for a regular person to derive benefit from things that have been consecrated to God. And as we've seen throughout this book, there are 2 general categories of things that you make holy to Hashem. Bein midvarim hakreven al gabe hamizbeach, whether we're talking about things that are actually offered on the mizbeach. So you're talking about an animal that's holy as a korban, you're talking about flour, you're talking about wine, oil, things that are meant to be offered on the mizbeach. Bein mikodshe bedek habayis, whether it's talking about things that were consecrated to the temple treasury, to the maintenance fund. These are things that have been passed over to the domain of holiness, and you as a regular person, me as a regular person, cannot just use them for our own benefit. If anybody has benefit at the worth of a pruta, we'll call a pruta about a nickel. Let's just call it 5 cents worth. If you have 5 cents worth of benefit from things that are consecrated to God, mo'al, you have committed Me'ilah, you have committed misappropriation, sacrilege. Now there's one exception to the rule. There's one category of holy things that we're allowed to, and actually there's even a mitzvah in some cases to have benefit from. And that is, halacha beis, dvarim shehutru ba'achila min hakarbanes. The parts of sacrifices that were explicitly permitted to be eaten. Many sacrifices have that. The Kohen has to eat parts of sacrifices, the owner has to eat parts of sacrifices. Kegoyim b'sar chatas v'asham, like the meat of a sin offering or a guilt offering, achar zrikas daman, after their blood is properly sprinkled. Oishtei alechem achar zrikas dam shnei akvasim. Here, where's the piece here? Or the 2 sheep. Sorry, the 2 breads after you sprinkle the blood of the two sheep. On Shavuos, there was 2 breads accompanied by 2 sheep. The 2 sheep were slaughtered. Once their blood was sprinkled on the Mizbeach, the 2 breads are now permitted. A regular sin offering, once you sprinkle the blood, the meat is permitted. So here, ein bahen me'ilah. The laws of me'ilah don't apply to them. It's confusing throughout the entire set of laws. When the Rambam will say there is me'ilah means you cannot use it. The laws of sacrilege apply to them, so you cannot use it. When you say there's no me'ilah, what it means is the laws of sacrilege don't apply to them, so you could use it. That's what it means, ein bahen me'ilah. These things you could use. Matter of fact, you have to eat it. Even if a non-Kohen eats from one of these things, which he shouldn't do, because it's, let's say, holier level sacrificial meat, since some people have the rights by the Torah to benefit from this meat, if you have the benefit from them, you haven't committed me'ilah. You may have other problems. You may be a non-Kohen eating sacrificial meat, which is bad. But this specific prohibition, you haven't transgressed. Even if later they become disqualified and forbidden to be eaten, something happens bad to the sacrificial meat. It becomes impure or something like that. And now you can no longer eat it. Since there was a moment, at least at one moment, when they were permitted at one point to somebody, you're not obligated, you're not liable for the laws of me'ilah when it comes to them. Let's talk about somebody who actually commits me'ilah. Somebody commits sacrilege purposely. He knows what he's doing and he derives benefit from holy things. First of all, he gets lashes. And he needs to pay back whatever amount he decreased the value of the hekdesh. Beroshai means in its principle. If you're doing it purposely, all you have to do is just pay back what you benefited, plus incur some lashes. How do we know the warning against committing sacrilege? Every time Torah says a punishment, there has to also be somewhere where it says don't do it. If all it says is if you do this, you get punished, we don't know that it's prohibited. So where do we see in the Torah that it's prohibited? It's from what it says in a different context. It says, Torah talks about holy things that you can't just eat anywhere. It says you can't just eat in your gates. You can't just eat anywhere. Masar de gancha, the tithe of your grain. It's referring to Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'aser Sheni you have to bring to Jerusalem, as we had a whole set of laws in the last book. But the end of the word says, v'chol nedarecha, or unedarecha. All of your voluntary vows, offerings. From tradition we learn, what's this word referring to? This is a warning against consuming meat of an oila, of a burnt offering which is completely to God. You cannot eat it. So from here we learn the same way the burnt offering. What's the feature? What's the unique factor of the burnt offering? That it's fully to God, and that's why you cannot benefit from it. So any part of any sacrifice which fully belongs to God, and even a consecration, whether it's belonging to the altar or to the temple treasury fund, like if a regular person derives benefit from it at the worth of a pruta, you get lashes. Now that's all if you did it on purpose. What if you did it by mistake? You were unaware. You see a piece of meat on the table, you didn't realize it was a sacrifice, you shouldn't have eaten it, you ate it. So first of all, there's no lashes. Obviously, you didn't do it purposely. But now you have to pay back whatever you benefited plus a fifth. Now in the Torah, a fifth actually means a quarter. Because if you take a quarter of the principal and you add it, now that in total it's a fifth. Right, let's say you have a benefit of $1. These are 4 quarters. So by adding another quarter, now you've added a fifth of the sum total. That's what chaimish means in the Torah. As the Rambam will soon say again. He'll remind us of that. So you must pay back whatever you benefited, plus a fifth. You have to bring a ram, the worth of 2 silver coins. Offered as a guilt offering. And you achieve atonement. That's called the guilt offering of me'ilah, of sacrilege. As it says in the Torah clearly, if a regular person sins inadvertently by using holy things belonging to God, so he has to bring a guilt offering, first of all, and then whatever he sinned, whatever he decreased from the holiness, he needs to pay back, plus its fifth. So you see both elements here. Asham, guilt offering, and the amount that you have to reimburse hekdesh for its loss. And this reimbursement, paying back the principal, adding the fifth, bringing the sacrifice, that is the positive mitzvah concerning me'ilah. Halacha dalid, even though there's a three-part compensation here, the principal, the fifth, and the carbon, tashlum hakeren, it's only the payment of the principal and the guilt offering that are essential to the forgiveness. The extra fifth is not essential. Shenemar, because it says, in the end of that verse, the Kohen achieves atonement for him, be'el ha'asham, with the ram of the guilt. We're going to divide these words into two, and we're going to explain that the ram refers to the sacrifice, asham refers to the principle. Therefore, from here, this pasuk we learn, ayil va'asham ma'akvin ve'ein achemesh ma'akev. It's the ram and the asham. Now here, pay attention, the word asham changes meaning. Till now, the word asham meant the guilt offering, the animal. Here, the asham, as contrasted to ayil, means the principal payment, the payment of the principal money. And the ram, that's what's essential, but not the extra fifth. Halacha hey, hevi mi'ilasai adshale hevi ashamai. If you only brought the ram sacrifice, and you did not bring the asham, the principal, as in the last halacha, we're translating asham as the principal money. If you only brought the ram and not the principal, lo yatsa, you have not fulfilled your obligation. You need to bring both. The fifth you can bring later.
So this is for an unintentional.
All for unintentional, exactly. What if you're in doubt? You don't know if you committed sacrilege or not. Let's say you don't know if this piece was holy or not. You don't know if you ate it. You don't know if you committed the misappropriation. You are exempt from payment from sacrifice. We cannot hold you accountable if you're in doubt. When you add the fifth, it would seem that the fifth is like your own money, right? You're adding money to hektish. But the truth is, it becomes as holy as the full consecration. It's as if you consecrated it to begin with. And if you go then and you misappropriate that extra fifth, you have to add a fifth to that fifth, because it's actually wholly consecrated. Here the Rambam reminds us, we've already explained many times, chaimesh in the Torah, fifth means 1/4 of the principle, that when you add that extra fifth, now together with the principle, it becomes 5 units. 4 units to begin with, take a quarter, you add a fifth, now you have 5 units. Halacha vav, yesh devarim, there are some categories of things, she'ein chayavin alein me'ilah midivrei Torah, where biblically you wouldn't be liable for sacrilege. Aval asur lehanis ba midivrei seifrim, but it's forbidden rabbinically. The Rambam doesn't give any examples here, but in chapter 3 and chapter 5, we'll see some examples of that. V'hanena mehen, and when something is only rabbinically forbidden, if you have benefit from it, meshalim keren bilvad, the punishment is only the principle. Ve'enei meisiv chaimesh, ve'enei mevi asham. No need to add a fifth, no need to bring the ram, just pay up the principle. And that is the conclusion of the Rambam's general outline for me'ilah, for sacrilege, again, which means misusing something from hektish for your own benefit. Now we move to the other general prohibition. Kol kache mizbeach, all things that were consecrated for the altar, this only applies to animals that are going to be used as an actual korban. Ben kache kachim, ben kachim kalim, whether it's the holiest of holy sacrifices, lesser sacrifices, asurin begiza va'avoda, it's forbidden to shear them, forbidden to work with them. Shenemar, as it says, and we read this in the Torah, outside of Israel, the last day of every holiday, lo yisa avoid b'bcher sheirecha, v'lo yisa goyz b'cher tzeinecha. Don't work with the firstborn of your ox, do not shear the firstborn of your sheep. So in context, talking about b'cher, firstborn animal, but really it applies to all holy animals. No shearing, no working. V'hu adin l'shar kachim, yeah. Same thing applies to all other sacrifices. If you do that, if you shear an ox or you work with a sheep, you get biblical lashes. But what do you call it? Plucking hair is not like shearing. You have to do the mechanical shearing, not the pulling. It seems to me, says the Rambam, you don't get lashes until you shear the amount of thread that's double the sit. Sit in halacha is the distance between the first finger and the second finger. Sit kafel, double that, is between the thumb and the first finger. So you have to shear that amount of thread. Why? Lo yiyazeh chamor mishabbos. This should be no worse than Shabbat. On Shabbat, to transgress the malacha of geizes of shearing, you must shear a double sit. So here also you must shear a double sit. Ches sveik kachim. If you have an animal which you're in doubt whether it's holy, like an animal which you're in doubt if it's firstborn. We had a whole bunch of doubts when it came to Pidyon Haben. If a boy is a firstborn son, Right? What if you have two wives, they get mixed up, you don't know who's the firstborn, there's twins, you don't know if it's a boy or girl first. So same with animals. You can have all these doubts if an animal gave birth to a firstborn son.
Right.
So then, since the whole holiness is in doubt, it's a little bit less extreme. They are still forbidden to be sheared or to be worked with. But if you shear or you do the work, you don't get lashes. Because you tell the court, hey, prove that it's a firstborn. You don't know that it's a firstborn. So therefore you can't hold me accountable. What if a holy animal got a mum? Okay, we're using the foot as a broken example over here. The animal broke its foot, which now makes it disqualified to be offered. So what did you do? You redeemed it. As we explained, that's what you do. The animal becomes disqualified, you redeem it. Nevertheless, it still retains some of its holiness. That doesn't make the animal permitted to be sheared or worked with. It stays forbidden till you slaughter it. Once you slaughter it after being redeemed, that's when it becomes fully permitted to be eaten. Says the Rambam, when do we say this? When it was consecrated before it got the blemish, or at least it only had a passing blemish that was going to heal. Then you consecrated it, and then it got a full-blown mum. But if you consecrate an animal which to begin with is blemished, only rabbinically is that forbidden to be worked with or to be sheared, not biblically. Nifdis, and if you redeem such an animal, it's completely mundane. For all matters, even with regards to shearing and working, it's totally chulin. Except for firstborn animals and tithed animals, Torah has a special law. Firstborn animal, even if it emerges from the womb with a mum, it's holy. Same with a tithed animal. You struck the Meiser means at the end of the year, actually around this time of year, end of Elul, you took all your sheep or cattle that were born that year, put them in a pen. They walk out one by one. Every 10th one, you streak it with red paint, and it becomes holy. What if you picked an animal that was damaged, injured? Doesn't matter. The holiness lands on it right away. They never become mundane with regards to shearing and working, and therefore there's no way to transfer them out of that category. The Osir says that Rambam, besides for actually physically working an animal, you cannot force them to mate. A firstborn animal or a disqualified sacrifice. That's called working. In the category of working is also forcing hybrids or mating. Halacha Yud, even though we said you can't shear the wool, mutar lisloish as haseir lechatchila min hakadashim, it's permitted to begin with to pull out hair from sacrifices kedei lahares hamum lamumche. If you're in doubt whether there's a blemish and you're showing it to a pro, you want a sage to inspect it, he has to remove the hair to see the skin, that's allowed. That hair which you plucked, or if it fell out from an animal or a firstborn or a tithed animal, it's still forbidden to have benefit from that hair. Even if the sage decides that they have a blemish and you slaughter it and it becomes fully permitted, not that hair. There's a decree, the rabbis were worried, you might keep the animals for longer. It's going to grow more wool for you. And you'll pull it out by mistake or you'll let it fall out and you're going to use them. Since these animals don't achieve atonement for you, at a firstborn or a tithe, you can bring it whenever you want. It's not a personal atonement thing. So you'll keep it another month, another 2 months, get some more hair, get some more wool. And therefore the rabbi said, no, if any hair falls out, you cannot have benefit from it. But if you have a sin offering or a guilt offering, and wool falls out of them, if they get a blemish, and you redeem them, and you slaughter them, now you can have benefit also from any hair that fell out. Because that worry of delay doesn't apply to here. A sin offering is you need it for your atonement. Why would you delay bringing in atonement? You wouldn't. And therefore, the rabbi said, you know what, no problem with the hair there. If hair was plucked from a burnt offering, there's a suffix, it's a doubt. On the one hand, the burnt offering is a voluntary offering. On the other hand, it does atone for mitzvah saseh. So the rabbis were in doubt which category we consider it. That was all for hair that came out before it got a blemish. But if hair was plucked out after the animal got a blemish, to begin with, it's all permitted. Because you didn't pluck it with your hands. Except for firstborn and tithe animals. Even what comes out after the gets a blemish is forbidden because, again, the tithe and firstborn are essentially holy. If somebody needs to slaughter a firstborn or another holy sacrifice, the slaughterer can pull out hair from the neck to make room for the knife. To see where, you gotta slaughter it right. But don't pull the hair out of its place. You can pluck it and kind of move it into the rest of the hair. Don't take it out. Yud Beis, kache bede kabayis. What if something was consecrated to the temple treasury? All the last 4 or 5 halachas we're talking about kache mizbeach, animals that are meant for a sacrifice. What if you have an animal that's just to the temple maintenance fund? Asurin begiza va'avoda midivrei seifrim. They're forbidden to be worked or to be sheared only rabbinically. Aval min ha'Torah einan asurin, but not biblically. Lefichach, therefore, ha'greizes eisanei ha'ovid ben. If you do shear them or you do work them, einei leika aval makanesim lakasmar. There's no biblical lashes, but there is rabbinic lashes. And the final halacha, yud gimel hamakdish ubar lamizbeach. What if somebody consecrates a fetus? He knows his cow is pregnant. He says, the baby that's going to be born, I want it to be holy. So right now it becomes holy in some form. Can you work with its mom? Says the Rambam, imay asura ba'avoda midivrei seifrim. Even though biblically there's no problem, but the rabbi said, do not work with the mom. Because if you work with it, it'll weaken the fetus. So the rabbis decreed on it. But shearing is totally fine. Doesn't bother the baby. If all you did was consecrate one limb to Hashem of an animal, whether to the temple maintenance fund or to the altar, the question is, does the holiness of one limb spread to the whole animal? And now maybe the whole thing is forbidden or not. Any case of doubt, we always say, don't do it, but if you did it, we can't hold you accountable, we're not going to give you lashes.